Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to change the world one brave word at a time. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the authors of a new book we have coming out, Find Your Voice, Save Your Life. 3 powerful healers' spiritual stories. These women are sharing powerful stories of their spiritual journeys. And I happen to be one of the authors in this book this time. So that's kind of cool for me. This is the 3rd book in a series by lead author Dianna Leeder and part of her Voices of Women project. And I'll start today by giving Dianna a big thank you for getting this group of amazing authors together. Dianna has a big mission to help women find and share their voices. And today I'm excited to introduce you to several of the powerful voices in this book, y'all. So Shelley Roman is the CEO of Sacred Ground Walk, where she helps people heal from trauma by returning to the light. Haley Verney is a soul alchemist, shifting individual and collective consciousness through inner transformation and personal mastery. And Pam McDonnell is a gifted healing artist and light worker and best-selling author who will open and hold sacred space as she guides you to recognize, shift, and transform your life's challenging patterns. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm so happy to have you all here. Okay, so let's start this party with Shelley. Shelley, talk to us about your amazing chapter.
Thank you, Laura. I am the author of chapter 15 entitled Listen for the Whispers, Learning to Trust Spirit in a Noisy World. And my story takes the reader from when I was 9 years old and had my first out-of-body experience in a major accident through my teenage and college years where I distanced myself from spirit, but spirit kept stalking me, through my first marriage where I felt silenced by my husband, through my second marriage, and into today where Spirit has been leading me to create this business, and I'm fully on board following source for all things.
So that, I know a little bit too much about you to be dangerous now. Like there's a lot that you skipped over in that little introduction. Can you talk about one of the turning points for you?
Well, one of the turning points and one of the things that surprised me when I wrote this chapter was realizing that I had been a silencer, that at some point my sons became Catholic and they didn't share that with me. So I wasn't at their baptism. And I realized that while I had felt silenced, that I had done something to silence my children. And so I had to look at that. And part of my story was going back into conversations where I realized I was trying to fit in and recounting what I would like to have said to be more authentic.
I read those pieces, and I have read pieces of your story in other books too about that. And I have to say, it hurt my heart, that piece of your story, having a couple of kids of my own. And I'll say thank you to you and all of you, really all of the authors in the book too, for being willing to have the courage to tell that vulnerable story. It takes a warrior, you guys. You're all so amazing in that way. Not only to just say yes to the project, but to know that that's going to be out loud. Did you have some resistance to telling that piece of the story, Shelley? How did that go down for you?
I didn't even know it was going to come out. I didn't even know it was there. I was writing and I got to that part and I typed this sentence that says, "The knife cuts both ways. I can be silenced and I can be a silencer." And I knew that that was vital, because as long as we're wounded, and we're all wounded, then we can do these things. And until we have the awareness that we do these things, we can't fully heal ourselves or be who we we're meant to be.
Nice, really powerful. To our listeners today, the power in the vulnerability is profound in this book. I really enjoyed being one of the fellow authors in this one. I told Dianna, I'm like, I need to write for this one. You know, my whole life has been about stepping up as a healer and wanting to understand the journey, but also talk about the different ways I was moving through it and the magic of it. And I know you all probably feel similarly. This book, in terms of spiritual stories, had a special place in my heart. So again, I appreciate all of you for sharing we call them the spiritual coming out stories. Haley, let's move to you now. Talk to us about your amazing chapter.
Okay, so I wrote chapter 12, Immersing into Stillness and Connecting to Freedom and Peace. And my chapter is about my transitioning or shifting anxiety and fear into freedom and peace through a process of inner awareness. And I also share some of my personal experiences or things that I've gone through in my life that sort of created my first spiritual awakening, and connect it to times, as you mentioned earlier, with Shelley, that this book and writing the stories did bring out a lot of vulnerability. And like Shelley too, I wrote about things that I didn't think I was going to write about. And so that was great. And then I also share some of the coaching processes and tools and breathing techniques in my story as well.
Breathing. I was just hearing that last word that you mentioned, and breathing techniques can be so profound for people. Talk a little bit about how you use that in your day-to-day.
Oh, I use breathing throughout the day. From the minute I open, well, obviously we breathe all the time, but I'm just very aware. I'm aware of my breath throughout the day. And I've, through various breathing techniques, I'm also, alter the type of breathing that I do. So if I feel anxious, I'll breathe in a certain way. If I need to calm down, or if I feel like I'm really too calm and I need to have a little bit more energy, then I'll also change my breathing process. So breathing is one of those magnificent tools that just helps with creating more inner awareness and space to be creative, and also great for healing.
And I was chuckling with you too, because I've said this before, well, we need to breathe. Well, duh, we need to breathe, right? Like it's life or death. We need to breathe. But there's something very different from breathing all day long and being aware of your breathing all day long, because there's the opportunity, right, to change it.
Absolutely. And also the part of the body that one breathes from, because the breath tells so much about the emotional state and your thoughts that's going through. So it's often just to pause and like now, a little bit anxious talking from here and knowing already drop down to the belly perhaps. So yeah.
Yes. So if you're listening and you haven't even thought about your breathing in terms of what you could be doing to help yourself in a therapeutic sense, oh my gosh, just get ready to open up a whole healing world for yourself. So exciting. And Haley's going to guide you a little bit with some of that information. So each chapter, y'all, is these stories heal, just the stories heal, but you're also reading master teachers, master coaches, master practitioners who really understand how things work and how to teach you also. So I can't wait for y'all to have these nuggets in your chapters. Thank you, Haley.
Thank you.
Pam, tell us about your chapter.
Okay, well, here comes the badass of the group, I guess. So my chapter is chapter 8. You'll find me on page 58 of our book. And the title of my chapter is Just Shut Up and Step Over the Fucking Line, The Healing Power of Words. So when Miss Dianna spoke to me about writing, actually, I'm in her book too as well. And when she talked to me initially about her books, she explained to me that book 2 was more kind of like the coming out of your, in a personal way. And her book 3 was going to be the coming out of your spiritual life. And because I live in the Bible Belt in Oklahoma, I have always been very guarded about the gifts that I know that I've had. My friends, my family, as all of ours do, know us in different ways than people that you just meet, or the people you will meet. So for me to actually really share the spiritual side rather than the structured religious side of me is, I found to be very difficult. So when Dianna mentioned to me that the 3rd book was going to be the spiritual awakening type of story, I jumped on it because I felt like that would be my opportunity to share not only with the world, but with my intimate group and family about my spiritual journey, of who I am in that realm and the things that I do within that. Because again, those things are very, I kept them very guarded. So you'll have to read the chapter to kind of find out where the title came from, but trust me, it was probably the 2nd biggest awakening that I had in my spiritual journey.
I can't really get over the thought about the amount of courage it must have taken to put that out there. And what's funny to me in past times where I've published books, and we have this fear of who will read it and what they will think of it. And we're telling stories for the first time sometimes that, they've been up in here for a really long time, but never out loud, never spoken, never written. And I remember really with one of the first books I ever wrote, like, I'm pretty sure the people I was most worried about never even picked it up and read it anyway. So it was, I was like, really, and what we do inside of ourselves over that is kind of amusing. But I have heard the opposite stories too from authors where people did read and there were shifts in the family, there were conversations, there were moments, and not all of them were great. And I think that it's important to understand that you all prioritized your own healing. And that is so awesome. Like, I'm going to be your cheerleader for that over and over again, because then when you're coming from that place, anything can happen from there. So congratulations to all of you who got over that purpose-driven fear. I talk about this, right? Okay, so I have this next question for all of you. Haley, I'm going to start with you. So, and I got to go a little old school, you guys. I got my notes in front of me today because my computer's, not behaving. So finding my spiritual voice was about sharing things I thought others might have criticism about. I was just talking about that. It was about sharing even though I was afraid of what they would think. And I call that fear purpose-driven fear for a reason. We're really meant to do these things and say these things. It felt like something I was born to do. It felt that strong to me. So Haley, I wanted to know a little bit more about if you had the resistance in you. What was that like? Resistance to sharing your spiritual stories at first. And maybe you did and maybe you didn't, but why or why not? Tell me a little bit about that.
It's a great question, because I noticed, like, when we submitted our first copy to you, and the stuff that I left out that I added in my second and third was the was my sharing that I had resistance to sharing the first time, that I wasn't feeling comfortable. And I'm going to talk specifically there to even calling myself an alchemist, playing in that space of alchemy. Who am I to think that I am that? Also referring to light language and new earth. So there were certain things, yes, that certainly did. I stepped. I had great resistance. I didn't realize how much resistance until I took my time to make my changes to my copy the first time. I was even late in submitting because I just didn't want, I had resistance, but I didn't know what it was. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you for talking about it a little bit. I think when I ask this question of all of my authors, I offer it and your answers to the listeners as an opportunity and to give them permission to explore this. Because when we tell our stories and then we read them again, and then they're in the book and you're looking at them and this thing that's about to go out all over the place, you all are taking this therapeutic process up a couple notches, right? Because not everybody is going to publish. But even for some people listening, for the first time to get it out on a paper of a journal and just literally get it out of themselves is the place that we can start. And, I always tell people, well, they say, I'm afraid people are going to read it if I journal, and where am I going to hide my journals? And what if somebody gets it and all that, so I always suggest that it's the process that matters. So burn the pages then. It's the process, it's the energy shift. And I love a couple of you have already today said, I didn't even know I was going to write about that. Like it was surprised, right? So yeah, Haley, thank you. I appreciate that answer. Pam, how about you? You touched on this already a little bit, but talk to us about that resistance. You said you jumped on the opportunity, but did you still feel the resistance as the story wrote itself through you?
Oh, yeah. And actually putting those words into print was even a bigger challenge for me. I mean, I struggled over that. I cannot tell you how long. I had several conversations with Dianna over it. And I think the fact that when I started working with people with tapping, just like I think it was Shelley said, we're all wounded and we carry those wounds around and we coddle them and we carefully keep them secreted away. We never get them on paper, and maybe if more of us could get them on paper, we wouldn't, hold on to them so dearly. But realizing that kind of helped me break through the resistance of putting those kinds of words on paper and actually sharing my part of the resistance of not ever sharing with others. So I'm hoping that all of us in our way, whatever we've shared in our stories, will help touch somebody else that will allow them to do the same thing, get through that resistance of, oh, I can't tell that. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Oh, what will people think of me? And like Shelley said, I loved her comment about being a silencer. Who of us would ever think that we're actually a silencer because we've all felt silenced? Oh my gosh, thank you, Shelley, for that.
I hear you there. And that's these little nuggets of profound awareness, or we're going to talk about awareness in a minute in our next question. But let's see what Shelley wants to add to this. So what about that resistance, Shelley?
I actually write about my resistance in my chapter. First, when I was a little girl, I ponder in my chapter about not wanting to talk about this out-of-body experience I had, even though no one had told me that that was wrong. it was just a knowing. So it's something in our group conscience, our society. But I was raised Methodist, and my dad is a big Bible reader. And I share in the story about how I shared with him. And he knows that the Bible is filled with mystical experiences and crazy things that happen. So at this point, I have shared everything that has happened to me mystically with my dad. And at 96, he gets it and he's fine with it. I talk a little bit in my chapter about being in recovery. And one of the sayings we say in recovery is you're only as sick as your secrets.
Mm.
And so if I am going to help people get what's in them out, I have to be brave enough to show who I really am. And I'm a beloved child of God, just as everyone reading the book and everyone else is. And so if someone has issue with that, they can take it up with Source.
Very well said, Shelley.
I think
Thank
it's
you.
a small miracle that your 96-year-old dad gets it and is good with it. And all of that. That's just awesome. Thank you for sharing that piece. There are some people that will never get there, you know. So I really love hearing those stories of people who do. So, okay. So Pam, I'm coming back to you, and this is perfect because you were talking about awareness, and I love this next question that I'll get around to all of you for. But to me, being a healer is about guiding people on this journey. It's about the awareness. Feeling is healing. So helping empower people to feel is part of this for me. So what I'd love to know is, what's your practice of awareness look like on the day-to-day?
I think it's just really being open from the time I open my eyes to the time I shut them at night, trying to be very vigilant that whole time to where I am, what I'm doing, what I'm feeling, and constantly, kind of like the breathing that Haley talks about, constantly checking in on that, but also checking in on where I am with different things. And if there's a shift that I need to make, then make it. You know, there's some days you can get up and for no known reason at all, you can just be down. You can have a sadness, you can have a depression, if you want to call it that, whatever. And for some of us, that's taken on somebody else's energy, but just being mindful of that and being sure that I do my very best to stay positive and aware, especially if I'm going to be seeing clients that day. You know, I don't need my stuff in the midst of theirs. So I want to be sure that I'm full and complete so I can hold that open, or open and hold that sacred space for my clients, so they can do the work that they need to do to get to where they want to be.
Yes, this is why I play in the sandbox with healers, you guys, because they take responsibility for their energy and they do it from the beginning of the day till the end of the day. This is why, and this is what you all can do. I love that you brought that up, Pam. I woke up this morning having had some nightmares. And, you know, once in a while you wake up and you have had some weird stuff going on overnight. And it's, you know, but you wake up in an energy. So I just paused. I just gave myself a moment to breathe, right? There's the breathing thing again. And then slide into gratitude for the beautiful, warm bedroom I was sitting in, right? It's that easy. It really can be that easy.
Yeah.
And but the bigger thing that I love about what you said is just taking responsibility for it in the first place, because you know you were going to go serve people from that place. So important. Thank you, Pam. Shelley, talk to us about your personal practice of awareness. What's it look like on your day-to-day?
It's knowing what's going on inside of me. What's become easy for me now is to witness what's going on in my mind. Those crazy thoughts from ego that are going by. I'm too loud, I'm too this, I'm too that. I'm pretty good at just witnessing those. If they're getting too busy, it helps for me to move my body. What I'm trying to learn to do is where those things might be affecting me in other parts and being really aware of that. An example happened yesterday. Many of you know I've had a 38-year career as an engineer. Well, it officially ended yesterday when I had lunch with my boss and said, please set me free. And he said, you really want that? You don't want us as a backup? And I said, no, I don't need a backup. Just set me free. And so I have to turn over the equipment and everything, but driving back from that lunch and last night, I was knowing that there must be a part of me grieving and having feelings about this. And so I came home and kind of sat in it a little bit. And then my husband called me and said, we need to have a celebratory dinner. This is a big step. And I wasn't even hungry, but I knew he was right, that I needed to acknowledge that this ending was a true beginning. But there'll be more feelings about that, and I'm going to watch for them. And then just as Pam said, if I'm talking to somebody, someone's in need, and I'm there with them, I need to be present for them and keep my stuff within me.
You said so many amazing things just now. I'm going to latch on to the idea that we don't celebrate enough. And I love that your husband said, like, hey, come on, right? We all need those people around us to remind us that this is celebration worthy. I think the rain coming down from the sky is celebration worthy. Like, if come to my house, we'll celebrate something. But at least the big moments, right?
Yeah, I agree. We don't, I think as a society, we ignore a lot of big moments. One of the things I talk about in my practice is how when you have trauma, we don't tend to acknowledge it. People in our society literally look away from your pain. And if I could change anything in this world, it would be the ability for people. I would make it so people could look right at other people's pain and at least give them a moment to share it in honesty.
Oh my goodness, don't get me started on this one. So, I think that healers are a special breed of human because we said yes to this path. We also said yes to learning how to hold that space for other people. And not everyone has been taught how to hold that space and with that pain. And even harder than that, we've actually been taught to go in the other direction, to ignore it, to stuff it, to brush it off, to whatever. So to all the people who are practicing this, hey, we know that's difficult. But what if you could just pause and breathe with it for a half a second, whether or not you're literally helping the person or not? What if you could just stand in your own discomfort and notice how that is for you when someone else is in pain? Even that small motion toward awareness is going to be a profound motion, I think. So big topics today, ladies. Y'all are amazing. Haley, what do you want to add to this? How does your daily awareness practice look?
I start early. I start at 4 o'clock in the morning with a beautiful stillness practice. In sitting in stillness for a while, it allows me to just connect to, as we were talking about earlier, the breath, but am I connecting to good feeling emotions or lower bad feeling emotions? And then that gives me some kind of insight of where I'm going to place my focused attention in terms of my energy management going forward in terms of the day. And I always start my day with setting intention and rituals. I love, apart from making sure that tapping into my own internal world in terms of my energy and my feelings and thoughts and emotions, but also into the space and the world around me, like my space, because my space, the external space, also influences one, and as when you connect to other people during the day. And I did want to add something else, and I've just gone blank. We'll come back. The other thing that also, as a yoga teacher, helps me a lot is the physical body. So, like you can get up and have aches in the shoulders or sore hips or ache, and it kind of forces you to pause and go, what's going on in the body? Where is it out of alignment? And then also to go and have a little bit of self-inquiry as to what's happening there, what may I be carrying, what do I need to release in terms of awareness for body, mind, and emotions.
I love that you just hit on the inner space of thoughts, the outer space of environment, and then back to the inner space of body, physical sensation. Oh, and for those listening, look at all of those amazing opportunities for awareness and shift. And I'll just say a quick thing about, I love that you mentioned your outer environment also. We all, it's a hot topic about the inner world, and we know we need to do the inner work and the inner this and the inner that. But what about the feng shui of the room you're sitting in? What about the colors and the way that the objects are making you feel? Your actual outer environment does matter too. I did that much later in life because I was so busy working on all the inner things. But I'm telling you, I know it sounds a little bit corny, but when I did the feng shui, the living room, I was like, ooh, I can breathe better. Right, Haley? Like, it's a thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And smudging for me uplifts me. And I wanted to add one other thing that I'm doing a lot more since authoring, co-writing in the book, is definitely including dance every morning. So yesterday morning, I woke up and I noticed that my energy was lower than it has been for a while. And so I played a number of songs and I danced, and it was absolutely incredible. I phoned all my friends and said, what do you have to celebrate today? How awesome is today? And it was just a beautiful reminder that of internal awareness, that there's so many tools that we have that we can use every day, just to, number one, identify what's going on within, without, and then to have that beautiful space to share. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that so much. Okay. All right, ladies. So I'm going to do one more question. I'm thinking we'll have enough time to get around to all of you. So we'll make this a little bit of a shorter answer. Okay. So Shelley, I'm going to start with you. People are listening and they're hearing what we have to say about all of the opportunities that Haley just mentioned, all of the ways that we express ourselves, find our voices, be on the healing path. What piece of advice would you give someone who might just be stepping on that path, maybe for the first time, or hearing these ideas for the first time, to give them an easy entry point, something simple to start with? What's one thing? I know y'all have like a million things you could talk about, but
just start with what resonates with you now. And then when that shifts, move to that thing. Trust yourself and where you're going. And don't stop. No matter what, don't stop.
I love that. Thank you. Perfect. Haley, what about you? What's one way you can help the listeners put us one step on the path? Simple way.
To be open and curious, and knowing that there isn't one right or wrong path. And take whatever you wish to take from whatever teachings or practices or disciplines that you connect with. Be curious, explore, and then choose what works for you, knowing that it may change a little while along the path, but that's okay.
Fantastic. Thank you. Pam, close this party out today for us? What's one
Okay,
thing?
so mine is really kind of a combination of both of what Shelley and Haley said, and that is, you know, let yourself be open. Take that first step, no matter how hard it is. Step over that damn line. And when
Nice.
you do go do that exploring and finding the tool or tools that work for you. It doesn't matter whether it's your health or your finances or your mental state or whatever it is, but find those tools, use them, find other tools that work better later once you've kind of gotten along that path.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you all so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everyone. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you for giving us
Thank
this
you.
opportunity.
So to our viewers and listeners, if you just scroll down a little ways into that little box underneath the video, you are going to find the websites and little bios of all of the authors that I have here today. Maybe something they said really resonated with you. So take the next step, click on the website, explore what they have to offer because they have some awesomeness to offer you. And one of the missions here at Brave Healer Productions is to really provide the community after the book. Like you read the chapters, you read this beautiful book, and then you're like, well, now what? Well, we have the now what, because these generous people are here to answer your questions, continue the conversation. So go explore down there, everyone, please. And please join us on November 22nd. We're talking about 2021 here now, in case you're listening next year, at noon Eastern, when we're going to celebrate the book with a live stream book launch party on the Brave Healer Productions Facebook page. All of our authors are going to be with us there to share their wisdom and inspiration. And that page is linked up down below for you as well. You're going to find many and almost all of our authors of all of our books on the Find Your Voice, Save Your Life community. And I'm getting that name wrong. It's called Find Your Voice Women community on Facebook. So please take advantage of coming into that group. I have it linked up down below for you as well. So y'all, lastly today, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it's time to be brave. See you next time, everyone. Thank you, authors.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.